I'm so excited for you all to meet my next guest, Hannah Crum, the Kombucha Mama. Um, this is going to be. I love kombucha in all of its glory, and Hannah has gone so deep into the culture and the literal culture of kombucha, and so we're going to talk a little bit all the way around this. We're going to have a conversation about that. Hannah is the author of the Big Book of Kombucha. And I met you, Hannah, at the Mother Earth News Fairs. I already knew about you because of your website, Kombucha Camp, and your personality out in the world as Kombucha Mama. And it was really great to get to know you there, and we have become friends forever. So I
Yes.
will turn it over to you, and you can talk about what it is that you do.
Sure. Hi, I'm Hannah Rohama, Kombucha Mama, mother to mazillions of bacteria around the world. We here at Kombucha Camp, camp with a K, because we're cute and clever, is we're bacteria farmers. And so we sell kits and cultures so you can make your own delicious probiotic fermented foods at home. Of course, we have kombucha cultures. We also have her raw honey cousin, Jun, kefir, kefir, kefir. We also have that, milk kefir, water kefir. And those are the four cultures we really love and have for folks. So the other thing, our motto is trust your gut. And I like to think of kombucha as a gateway. It's been a gateway for me into learning about so many things. And our mission is changing the world one gut at a time. And we know we have to do it in symbiosis, which is part of what our culture is called a SCOBY, the symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. And we're really all about empowerment through education. And as an outgrowth of our mission in 2014, we founded Kombucha Brewers International, where I still serve as president. And we are the trade association representing all commercial kombucha around the world. And so, ever since I had this random chance meeting with kombucha way back in 2003, I fell in love with her and have been called to serve Gaia through the medium of kombucha.
I think I do a lot of work in kind of the wild ferments, and you talk about being a bacteria farmer. All of the ones that you list there, the Jun and the Kefir and the kombucha, I think some people who are getting started in all of this, it's just a lot of bubbly drinks that are out there on the market, and may not understand that these are cultures. They're actually symbiotic cultures between yeast and bacteria that have been passed down. They've been living beside us and with us for centuries. People pass these down in families. That's fascinating to me that we have something that benefits our gut and that we can cultivate and keep going. But it's a set form. Like where I talk about wild yeast, yours it's a thing. It's a known entity, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, it's bacterial cellulose is what creates the structure, and then the yeast and other microbes live within this structure. So it's almost like they create their own mothership, mushroom, right? It's been called a lot of different things, mother. And so what's neat about it, different from the wild fermentation where you're relying on the microbes already present on your substrate, be that your cabbages, your beets, or whatever you're fermenting, you're creating an environment that's hostile to pathogens vis-a-vis the salt, right? That's what the brine does. And now you just let those microbes flourish within that salty brine, and that's what creates the fermentation. What's different about these is we do need the actual culture in order to inoculate, to initiate that process. And so I think of them as a cross between a pet and a plant. So they're not going to come crawling into your bed at night or slithering onto your lap. However, we end up in this really lovely relationship with them. And like both pets and plants and people, we need to understand what environment they need to live in where they can thrive. But that becomes a great lesson for us because, kombucha scobies and even these kefir grains, they are so prolific. They are literally abundance in action. And when you get to witness and participate in the process of cultivating something, of giving it the inputs it needs, making sure it's in the warm enough environment, and then you witness how it continues to grow and thrive, it's a reminder that that's exactly what we can do for ourselves. And really, all of these fermented drinks and things is designed to take back control, to reclaim our health, to reclaim the ability to heal ourselves. And, kombucha is one of these beverages that can have an acute, like a real instant response. So if you're dealing with digestive issues, having kombucha, you're going to feel a result within a short amount of time. And so I think that's just that first layer of benefit. And then there are many others that come from repeated consumption over time.
So I've used kombucha in particular. I've used it as a treatment for some things in an acute situation. And I've also recommended it for long-term building. This summit is all about proactive health, and it's really trying to get people to start to think of all the aspects that you might start to put together. It's not just one thing. We can't just say, oh, I'm going to have elderberry, which is wonderful. I'm going to have elderberry in my cupboard, and then I'm proactive. Everything's good. I'm taken care of. We really have to talk about those deep-rooted issues. And unfortunately, in our culture, it's digestion. I always tell people to go to digestion first when they've got any number of issues. So if you can kind of give us a high level, what would somebody turn to kombucha for? What are the things acute and also chronic that are common to address with kombucha?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and let's just back it up a little more and go digestion. Like, why is digestion so important? Well, when we realize that the tissue of our gut is the same as the tissue of our brain, like, it is intelligent. And so people say this is the first brain and the second brain. I say it's the other way around. This is the first brain, because if this brain is out of order, this one does not function properly. And we can't get to this brain unless we're healing this one. And so I think it's so crucial for us to understand how vital it is and how beautiful it is that we have this mirror, aka our digestion, our skin, these ways in which our body communicates with us something is wrong. So from an acute perspective, specifically, I'll just share my husband's story. Way back when we first started drinking kombucha in the early 2000s, before that he was having his morning Gatorade, right? Energy drink, getting you ready for the day, full of chemicals and sugar and weird dyes. And every night he was taking a Zantac because he had antacid. We were sad. We were eating processed food, standard American diet. Once we switched over to kombucha, acid reflux was gone. And people might be thinking, okay, so let me just share a little bit more. Kombucha is specifically an acetic acid ferment like vinegar, and it does have a tangy flavor profile, a sour punch to it. And people might be thinking, well, that's weird. If you have acid reflux, why would you put more acid on top of that? And that's because acid reflux is actually saying, hey, hello, I need more digestive assistance here.
Yeah.
And usually, how we normally counteract that from a symptom-based perspective is like, oh, acid, neutralize it with base. Well, the problem is, you're never lowering the pH in the gut. You're keeping it at that high level. You eat again, you get that acid reflux, you have indigestion again, and you never solve the problem. You're only ever addressing the symptom. Yeah. So when we start to drink kombucha, when he started drinking kombucha on a regular basis, within 2 weeks, he never needed that Zantac again. And of course, he got rid of the Gatorade. And that led us to a whole series of other changes. And so to your point, proactive isn't, I found the one thing. Right? That's the mythology of American advertising is, here's the one thing. Exactly. The magic bullet, the only cleaner you'll ever need, whatever it is. That's how we're constantly sold. And that's not accurate. But what's exciting about being proactive is now we get to fill our cupboards with these amazing healthy foods that have great profiles. And to the elderberry, you can even put that in your kombucha. So from an acute perspective, we've got indigestion, we have heartburn. It can help, and because it's going to the root cause, it doesn't matter if you have constipation or diarrhea, it can help both of those. And so that's going to be the most immediate acute benefit that people feel is like, oh, I ate something, I feel funny, my tummy's weird, have some kombucha, you feel a lot better. And that's because that acid is breaking down, it's helping you to digest, it's helping to extract those nutrients, and that just means then your body can process that and you're not stuck in I can't digest mode. From a longer term perspective, oh my gosh, I've seen so many benefits just me personally. So of course, when I first started drinking kombucha, one of the things I noticed right away is my skin cleared up. I still get tons of compliments on my skin. It just like, because you're cleaning, right, your skin is here to tell you, hey, something on the inside isn't quite right. And so, you know, again, we try to go topical with it and just put creams or whatnot. And the problem is that the cause is coming from the inside, not the outside. And so that was one thing I noticed for sure. And then, you know, it's hard to say, right? It's hard to say what it is exactly, but, you know, as a teenager, I had HPV, very common, normal. I always had abnormal pap smears. Then as I drank kombucha for a few years, they stopped being abnormal. They cleared up.
Wow. So the support of your overall immune system was able to
Yes.
drive down a virus that was trying to keep repeating.
Correct. I mean, and I didn't have
Probably under stress.
exactly right. Exactly right. And because that's the real killer, right? That's the real killer. The real killer is stress. And stress can come from a poor diet. Stress comes from not sleeping well enough. Stress comes from, you know, difficult living conditions or whatever it is. But stress is ultimately the thing we need, and we also need to balance.
Well, I think you talk about something like HPV and any other kind of disease that we've identified in our world today, and the idea of you brought something in that was much like an adaptogenic herb. It's immunomodulating. It is supporting the overall vitality and ability for this system to be more resilient. And you cured your disease. And so we get into a lot of trouble in our world because we've got people who want to do the traveling medicines sales of, you know, just take this pill for $49.95 and I can cure your whatever flavor of the day. And we've got all of these entities that want to watch out and watchdog that, rightly so in some cases, I think. But to suggest that you didn't cure the disease. And that's what these entities don't really understand. You didn't cure a disease in your body. You crowded it out. You crowded out its ability to continually prey upon you or
Correct.
to colonize or get going because you didn't have that weakness anymore. And we don't have a space to talk about that because we get in trouble. It sounds like we're talking about curing every disease under the sun, but of course the body's able to heal itself.
Well, but this is the ridiculous, like, the United States is founded in herbalism and homeopathy. Come on now, people. Like, the fact that we have to hide and use, you know, dodgy ways to talk about things that human beings have relied on for a lot longer than the pharmaceutical industry has existed is insane to me. And again, it's not, we always have to have the caveat. Yes, there are some pharmaceuticals that can do benefit in certain situations. It's just when we go to that as the first course of action, that's when we really continue to mess our bodies up. And you know, just the fact that we have to be, you know, it has to be subterfuge and can't really be honest about the fact that herbs have been healing humans forever is really ridiculous, as you and I both agree. But this is what's great about kombucha and these other fermented beverages. They become a medium. They become a modality because the fermentation, what it does is it enhances the nutritional value. So let's say, again, putting example of the elderberries, and we have a really great elderberry syrup kit for anyone who wants to make it at home. All the ingredients, just put in a pan with water. And you can then put that into your kombucha, your jun, your water kefir, and not only does it have a lovely flavor, but now you're enhancing the nutritional value of that which you're consuming. And so if you have a knowledge of herbs, if you have a knowledge of different elements in nature that can support you, you can leverage the kombucha as this medium to then pass those benefits on to you. And so, you know, kombucha is really like this blank canvas at the end of the day that we can put all these things on. But let's talk about why kombucha itself is so healthy, if you want to go there.
Please.
It's made from tea. Hey guys, we're talking about Camellia sinensis. Not your peppermint tea, not your hibiscus tea. Yes, we can add those too, but we're talking about Camellia sinensis, which is an incredibly well-studied plant. It's been known to help with, cure cancer, to help with weight loss, to, all kinds of things. Antioxidants, right? The ECGC. We've even seen, talking about the most recent pandemic and things like this, ECGC is one of those things on the list that can really help support a healthy immune system. And so when we take tea and we ferment it, now here's the other secret thing, the acetic acid component, which is like vinegar. Vinegar has been known to help with blood sugar, with cholesterol, with different things. So we combine these two forces together, vinegar and tea vinegar, which is essentially what kombucha is. This is why kombucha is so efficacious. This is why kombucha is able to do so much. And in fact, the SCOBY is so great at detoxifying. They're starting to, let's make filters that filter water, membranes to filter water out of kombucha SCOBY, because it's going to remove more toxins than something made from plastic, right? So there are uses for our culture that are going to go beyond just simple consumption that can literally help detoxify so many different things. So I truly believe that part of why kombucha is in this ascendant moment, and of course I'm doing everything I can to push it there, is because we're so poisoned. And, she knows that we need this help because the acids created by kombucha, the gluconic, glucuronic, acetic, they bond to toxic molecules in your body, and then through hydrolysis or urination, we pee them out and we flush them out of our body. And so, so it helps keep the engine running smoothly, and it helps make sure that we're processing everything properly through the liver. So it really is this fantastic tonic that can help in a lot of ways.
Helps us to move toxins out in a toxic world, and that's a lot of what we see is dysfunction of the liver because of food and exposure to things in the water. So kombucha can really be a day-to-day sort of tonic maintenance sort of situation, but exactly. Also it's living. It's a living entity that we're taking in, and in a situation now where we want to irradiate all our food, we want to put dead food, and the old axiom of you are what you eat. If you eat dead food, what are you going to be?
Dead.
Dead. Yes. So kombucha and June and kefir and all of these drinks that have been passed down, they're so simple. It's just so simple to incorporate them, and the benefit of putting something living into your digestion for your immune system, for digestion. Huge.
I mean, that's the other thing we've noticed over time. My husband and I almost never catch a cold. This whole time we've been entirely safe, and I'm out in the world and I'm doing things and I'm here and there. And, again, I'm not saying it cures. I'm not saying it's going to, be the end all be all, but it's this gateway into understanding fermented foods. And it really does have a lot of positive benefits. In fact, there were some studies done at Texas Christian University. Did I say that in the right order? In any case, where they gave people a standard stress test. And people who had kombucha before they engaged in the stress test, while they still demonstrated that stress was activated in their body, they reported they did not feel that stress. And so it has this ability to help us really keep calm. And, and this, that whole meme, I'm always like, drink kombucha and keep calm, because you have to drink the kombucha first in order to get to the calm state. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And again, it is an adaptogen, and this is what it's demonstrating is that a lot of the ways in which kombucha behaves is just like an adaptogen, because it allows your body to have more resilience. It also does have those trace amounts of B vitamins. And the thing I want to emphasize here is, while they may not be present in these huge, massive doses or mega quantities, they're available in a format that your body can instantly uptake and utilize. We've all seen those chemical drawings of a carbon here and a draw line over there. Those are like keys. And so when the key fits, your body can instantly use it. In synthetic nutrients, the key is not the right shape. The key isn't the right shape. And so your body either can't use it at all, or now you end up over accumulating something that the body can't use, and it ends up having the opposite effect of what you wanted it to do. And
Or
so
your body tries to use it, but it's not quite right, and so it creates inflammation, which is totally against what you want to do.
exactly. And so again, it's quality over quantity. It's consider the source, and it's a gateway into learning more about other types of foods that can support your health.
Along with the adaptogenic idea, so I'll define that for those who don't know on the summit. To be an adaptogenic herb or a plant is something that doesn't have
There's three
contraindications
characteristics.
in. Yeah, the more you use it, the more it has for you. It doesn't tend to have contraindications in the vast majority of the population. What would you say is the third one?
So the first one is non-toxic, the second one is non-specific, and the third one is, I think, what you were saying about it being able to
Yep.
balance. Yeah.
Today, I think adaptogens are the way forward because somebody who's starting out today who has been following mainstream health information and advice, who now says, okay, I want to go a different direction, likely has a family and themselves on a lot of medications. And so it gets really complicated. Can I use chamomile? Am I okay to use elderberry? What's right for me, and what's going to be a problem with my medication? Adaptogens don't tend to have those problems. So are there any contraindications? Is kombucha something that generally people can use safely across the board?
Correct. Now, there's going to be one specific issue that kombucha is just not going to be able to help with, and that's histamine allergy. Right? So histamines are naturally created through the fermentation process. Our bodies normally can handle histamines. However, if you have gut dysbiosis that's more extreme, it can actually create a negative reaction in the body. And so if you're someone who's like, I've got digestive issues, I started taking all these fermented foods, and so again, you have to evaluate, is this a die-off period? Because that'll often happen. Whenever we start uptaking more nutritious foods, the body needs to adjust. And that adjustment period can feel a little uncomfortable, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's having a negative reaction. Again, trust your gut means you have to listen to your body and your feedback and understand what's going on. However, if you keep trying them and you keep having these negative reactions, maybe then it's worth it to get a test. Do I have a histamine allergy? And then once the gut is healed, you'll be able to reincorporate these foods. So that's the thing with all of these different digestive issues, is once they're healed, we can then usually bring back in foods that we think are allergenic. It's just either we've been over consuming them, or we've been selecting a poor sourcing on them, or maybe the body just needs a break for a minute, and then you can bring them back in.
So even with histamine, I'm seeing some studies where, because usually the instruction is if you have a histamine intolerance, you can't have any fermentation whatsoever, which is a problem for me because you need the fermentation to be healthy to gain health, to move out of your situation. Some of them may still be a problem, but I'm seeing a lot of research that the ferments that are short ferments that are done lidded and contained contain a lot less histamine. You couldn't do a secondary fermentation. You couldn't allow it to sit, but some of those may be available.
Well, then the milk kefir and the water
kombucha.
kefir, because those
Yeah.
are much shorter. Because kombucha is that longer, more like a 7-day, 14-day, and we'll talk about that in the demo. But
Yeah.
the shorter ferments with water kefir is at 24 to 72 hours. Milk
With
kefir
the
is
lid
20.
on.
Correct. Yes, exactly.
And so kombucha likes oxygen.
It does. It
Kombucha
needs
likes
it.
kombucha likes all the oxygen. It likes to breathe, and so kombucha would be something that we would move somebody into with a histamine intolerance. But I guess I would throw it out there that somebody with histamine intolerance shouldn't take that as gospel. That no fermentation. There are
Interesting.
ways to go, and trust your gut is really critical. Some things may work okay, and some things may not work okay. And it may be different for you than it is for your friend.
I like this. I think that's true of all of this information. Like, no two of us are identical. And,
Yeah.
that's even what the Human Microbiome Project has run into. It's like, it's hard to create correlation because what they're saying is diversity is what's key, right? You know, we want to be like, well, what's the
that
bad strain?
organism with itself.
Exactly. And so that's what I really love about it, is because like then it allows the body to be unique and individual. And it also means that, you know, how one person eats or how another person eats doesn't mean that's how you should eat. And that's where really we can, even your doctor doesn't even necessarily listen to you and believe your symptoms are real. Only you, who is living in your body, can actually be that person to make those evaluations. And of course, you want to have trusted sources like Dawn and your books, and you know, and our site if you want to learn more about kombucha and fermentation. And then you have to experiment for yourself, and you have to really trust your intuition too. And I get that sometimes that can be challenging, especially if we, you know, have brain fog and things like that. However, you know, you can tell that feedback, right? So trust your gut isn't what tastes good, because some things, the candida is going to say, give me more sugar. I want to live. I want to proliferate. And you're going to eat that sugar and then, oh, that tastes good. And I get my little sugar high. And then like, oh, I feel terrible on the other end. Well, that's not trusting your gut. You need to listen to that feedback that's happening and say, okay, this didn't make me feel good. Now I need to figure out, okay, now I need to educate myself, right? So you go and you read something and you understand, and then you try to, you know, dissect what's going on and get rid of the things that are actually causing problems, as opposed to the things that do support your health.
Stop hurting yourself. You don't have to listen to somebody else's ideas of what goes in you.
Correct.
If you keep getting told by you that it doesn't work.
Right.
You have to stop that cycle. Yeah. So I know you're going to do, in a separate video, you're going to do a demo on all of the ways that somebody could choose, because I think we get locked into, when I first started making kombucha, for me, there was this bowl method, and I had to have like 60,000 bowls, and I was never allowed to put them in the dishwasher, and they could only be done with this, and I didn't know where I was going to get all the bowls. And then the kombucha SCOBY starts having babies, and then you have to separate those out. So before long, I was living to serve. I was the kombucha slave of the household, and I felt bad if one of them died, and oh my gosh, it was so much stress. So I came across your continuous brewer, but some people use a jar, and some people use a bowl, and some people use a continuous brewer like you designed. And I think that's so valuable to get across that, guys, you're not trapped into the way to make this. Besides guidelines, it is important to learn how to make kombucha. I think it's empowering. Your book on how to make it also gives tons of flavoring ideas, and that gives people, you're not trapped with just what is available in the store. You can save money. You can be in charge of what flavors. You can use the kombucha as a vehicle to treat your family, and all of that stuff puts you in control. But for those who aren't ready for that, because there are, as we start down this path, there's so many things that we need to start incorporating that we have to take things one at a time. So if somebody wanted to incorporate kombucha into their life and they're not quite ready to interact with the space alien that is the kombucha SCOBY, how do they look at, like, how do I source kombucha that isn't just a sugar drink that has kombucha on it and isn't really impacting me?
Yeah, it's, you know, so I started drinking commercial kombucha. That's how I first saw it floating in a jar. We didn't drink any, but because I heard the word, I went to Whole Foods, and lo and behold, there was tons of it all over the store shelves. And in fact, most grocery stores have it in the produce section. So even if you go to a Kroger or something like that, you can probably find kombucha, even if you think it's not in your area. So I would go there and take a look. And there's going to be several different brands there. And unfortunately, this is why KBI, Kombucha Brewers International, the organization I founded, we've created a code of practice, and we're about to launch a seal program that will support that code, because a lot of producers have not been transparent on their label. And so you might see a pasteurized from concentrate kombucha in the refrigerator section right next to a raw living kombucha, and it can be hard to tell those apart if you're not well versed in what is kombucha. So a brand I would always go to first is GT's. He happens to be the person who put it in a bottle and sold it in 1995 and has sort of single-handedly grown awareness and the industrial side of this lovely product. And he still makes it in a very authentic way. Now what you'll notice on his though is it has a much lower sugar grams and no added sugars. And here's the little trick around this. So the FDA does not understand fermentation, surprise, surprise. And what this means is that if you brew kombucha with sugar and you're testing it at the end of fermentation, that still has to go into added sugars, even though you're not adding sugar at the end of the process. So the way GT worked around it is he brews his with kiwi juice. So that's not sugar, so then that doesn't have to go in the added sugars. See how that works?
Nice.
Yes.
Yep.
That said, even if you're looking at the kombucha bottle and you're looking at the grams of sugars, like, whoa, 7 grams, 8 grams, whatever it might be, you're not comparing apples to apples because the sugar is fermented, which means it's pre-digested and already broken down from a complex carbohydrate or sucrose into fructose and glucose, which naturally has a lower glycemic impact on the liver. So if you're looking, and if you're looking at a bottle of fruit juice, you're looking at fructose. Like, this is the whole confusing thing about the verbiage on these labels is it's not designed to help you, the consumer, have that more sophisticated understanding. It's a really rough measure and it doesn't accurately portray what you are consuming. And so here's how you can tell. So you wanted to say raw living kombucha, you wanted to say culture strands might be present because that means it's alive. Go to your farmer's market, connect with your local kombucha producer. There are lots of those people and they love talking to you about kombucha and letting you sample all the flavors and giving you a little education. And here's the reality though. A pasteurized from concentrate kombucha, in my opinion, is still going to be a better choice than a diet soda, than an energy drink, than so many other choices out there. So but of course, and there was a recent study, what has higher antioxidant values? The stuff you're making at home because it's fresher, you're making it, you have full control over the process. No additional processing is required, right? Because they'll add forced carbonation, maybe they'll add an external probiotic, maybe they'll add, right? When we're processing a food and sticking it on a shelf for people to buy that may be, thousands of miles away from that facility, it has to have something done to it. And so there are great ones out there that are going to, again, any kombucha you pick is going to be wonderful and great. If you want one that's closer to homebrew, go for something that does say raw, that does indicate culture strands present. But of course, the healthiest one is going to be the one you make at home.
Yeah. Do any of them have to pasteurize to be able to get onto a store shelf?
Not have to, but brands that pasteurize, for example, would be Kavita. They still sell it in the refrigerator section. They're also from concentrate. So kind of the way you can, I actually have a blog post about reading the nutrition labels. You can start to read between the lines a little bit. So for example, if you notice it's like 0 sugars, but then stevia is added. That usually means it's been fermented to a 0 sugar state. And so it's a concentrate that then has been diluted with flavoring added. And the stevia is there to create a sweetness. Otherwise, you'd just be drinking vinegar, right? And so there are a lot of low-calorie kombuchas out there that utilize that type of process to have that lower number in the calorie section and in the added sugar section. But then when you notice that it's a stevia or monk fruit or erythritol or whatever, one of those other sweeteners on there, that's what's going on.
Yeah,
I can't drink them myself. I can't drink them myself, but I know a lot of folks who love diet soda, and that flavor profile to me is just so similar that I feel like it actually could be beneficial to help those people get off the diet sodas. Because here's the thing, if you have people in your family who are resistant, a bridge, exactly right. I'm like, mix it with the diet soda. At least now you're getting some of the organic acids. And what happens is if you can increase the amount of kombucha and decrease the amount of soda, over time, the body is going to prefer the kombucha anyways. Because bitter and sour are the flavors of health and digestion. It doesn't mean we have to have them every, that's the only flavors we eat, but they are important to have at every meal.
And you have to get your body accustomed to that. I can usually tell how off somebody's digestion is when they taste one of my bitters and they make a horrible face and it's so repellent because they're not They're not accustomed to bitters, and their taste buds. I think so few people understand this, that your taste buds actually they go comatose. They can't operate when you've coated them in all the chemical flavorings and you've fooled them for so long that they're sort of deadened to what real flavors are. And you start bringing that in, it's like, oh, that's nasty, it's terrible. You kind of have to inch your way in, and suddenly you get to a tipping point where the Diet Coke, if you try and taste that now, oh no,
Right.
no, you can taste all the chemicals, but you
Mm-hmm.
couldn't taste all the chemicals before. So it
1000%.
takes a little bit of time. I love the idea of something that is altered. I mean, that's where we have to be really careful not to judge people on where they stand.
Correct.
If a Kavita is altering itself to be able to market, to compete in today's market where consumers are being told sugar bad,
Right.
calories terrible, if they're altering to hit that niche that's still beneficial to bring people from, all the way over here to a little closer.
Exactly. We just want with the seal program for it to say pasteurized from concentrate on the front of the label, just like it does a juice, because then the consumer can instantly see and make that informed decision for themselves, right? We all know the difference between a raw juice versus, and I will still buy a pasteurized juice or one from concentrate depending on the situation.
But you like to be informed.
That's right, and I'm always going to gravitate towards the raw option. And by the end of the week, the bottle's blown up and puffy because it's still fermenting. Because everything that's alive can't help but keep changing. So yeah, so any kombucha is a better choice. But this is how you can start to decipher what's on the list a little bit. And we do have a 30-day kombucha challenge at Kombucha Camp. It's an amazing course that's going to talk you through so many different, not just about kombucha, but all these different healing modalities we've been talking about sugar, talking about hydration, talking about, just basic bite-sized things that we can do on a regular basis that don't have to be overwhelming. And just if we're every day drinking a little bit of that kombucha and reflecting, noticing the feedback, just taking 30 days to even pay attention to how you're eating can be a really great practice to understand what are my unconscious habits. Where am I sort of tuning out of the nourishing process?
And sometimes it can help to have somebody guide you because, we need to talk about healing crises and what it does look like to have our body kind of purge some stuff that was stuck. I think in today's world where you're never supposed to experience pain or discomfort, to a lot of people, if they start drinking a living food like kombucha, and it's already a little weird because it's tangy and vinegary, and they started to go to the bathroom more often, and sometimes we pull away from that because, something's going wrong. It's okay to have a little bit of discomfort. We have to walk through that to get back to vibrant health because we're purging all the stuff that we accumulated. And so sometimes it can be nice to have somebody to help guide of no, continuously sitting on the toilet for hours and hours on end, something's not right.
Right.
Having a little digestive discomfort here and there, that's okay. You can keep pressing on because we unfortunately don't know how to press through that in our culture. So I'm glad that you do that. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's really, and it's great because at one point we do say, now go back and taste that beverage you're giving up, if that's coffee, if it's soda, if it's whatever. And it's so interesting. About 3 weeks in, you've really cleared out that palate, and that you can now taste how horrible that is. And, soda's out of my life, but if I ever have a soda, it's always going to be a Mexican Coke. Why? Because it has the sugar.
Or one of ours.
When I'm in Ohio, yes. No, I need to get the syrups. But my point being is I always pick the one with the actual sugar because I think sugar gets demonized too often. And are we talking about a grass that's been cultivated for over 5,000 years that creates an actual reaction in your brain that closes a feedback loop? Sugar's literally the fuel for everything on this planet. And or are we talking about chemicals processed in a plant with a bunch of chemicals added to it? What is it we're talking that doesn't create that link, or these synthetics where then you're over consuming them because your body never gets a sense of satiety out of consuming it. So consider the source is so important. And it's not just for what you're putting in your body, it's for what are you putting in your mind? What are you putting in front of your eyes, right? Like, we really need to get hygiene for all of this, because when we allow ourselves to steep in negativity, to be jacked up by the news. It was funny, my husband hurt his back in the pandemic. He's like, oh, I understand why so many people watch the news. It's constantly activating your cortisol levels, and it's intense, and that can have a little bit of a pain reducing effect, but it also gets you spiraling into these other places that just really aren't good for you.
It distracts you from life.
It does.
And I think one of the things about kombucha and the fermented drinks and the fermented foods is we have to consume only life. We have to be about the business of only life. And if it isn't life, don't consume it. Because it's not going to make you well. It's going to use you up. It's going to make you sick.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So, thank you for joining us. This was awesome. Lots of things to think about here, and I'm excited to see your demo about making it accessible to make kombucha at home for everybody.
Well, let me just leave with one last thing. So I'm a word nerd, and if you read my book, you'll see that throughout. And one of the things my husband came up with that I absolutely love is common immunity. Common and community. We need to hug. We need to kiss. We need to exchange micro amounts of bacteria between each other, because that builds our immune systems and make our force field stronger. And, you know, what I think we're seeing right now is a lot of breaking of the fabric of society, and the more that we can build structure and come back together around what's common to us, which is thriving and surviving and fermenting. And, you know, it's okay to have different ideas than other people, but I know we can all agree on let's do what's best for planet and people, for prosperity, so that we all can feel good together. Because when we're united, it's like anything, right? Like, when we're united, it's harder to take us away from the things that actually keep us safe and healthy. I don't want to eat bugs. I don't want to eat lab-grown meat. I don't want to be told I can't have access to farms. I don't want to be told I'm not allowed, right? Like that is what we want to protect, is the ability to live as human beings in harmony with nature.
Yeah, for sure. We are in sync.
Yes, we are.
You and I are on the same page. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking your time and for the work that you do and keeping kombucha out there. May you have much success in crusading for more people drinking kombucha. And I look forward to your demo. Thanks so much for giving us your time. And I'll talk to you later.